DD was dropped, a couple days ago. I thought it was pretty good. Wanted to just highlight some of the things here. So practically, he kind of highlights and say Kraken Robotics is a primarily public supplier of Anduril. Anduril is a defense company. Underwater drone manufacturing ramp. Anduril just opened a facility designed to produce 200 plus units per year. Each unit costs about 2 to 10 million of Kraken content. The stock has run, but the revenue hasn't caught up. Meanwhile, the defense spending on the autonomous system is accelerating globally as underwater infrastructure become critical national security concern. So, how Kraken says what Kraken actually does and where they screwed up before. Kraken Robotics, a Toronto company, CEO Kenny, I believe he might be dead now, I think, started in 2012. His pitch was simple: build a synthetic aperture sonar that could image the ocean floor in high definition instead of blurry mess everyone else was selling at the time. And this is true. A lot of these boats, older boats, their system and everything else is just tied up with these cameras that really don't provide really good resolutions. So for the first time ever, Kraken was your typical struggling tech company. The burned cash like almost any other small company. The company was losing money through the 2020, and I think they saw some kind of turnaround as they started doing more of the underwater imaging technology. But they kept pushing, kept improving their technology and the business model. Instead of just selling sonar system, they vertically integrated. They built their own high energy density battery, about 6,000 meter depth, and started manufacturing complete autonomous underwater vehicles like the Thunderfish and KATFISH. This also gave them 3 revenue streams instead of 1, as well as opening their business model for recurring revenue, like we talked about with the KATFISH. About how they make money. So about 75% of revenue comes from their product sale, sonar systems, batteries, complete underwater vehicles. The remaining 25 is service, where Kraken operates the equipment themselves for customers who need seafloor mapping imaging. Their main customers are Navy, defense contractors, and offshore energy companies. Once again, we're talking a lot about energy. There's a lot of companies that energy is becoming like one of the most important things, especially in the world of artificial intelligence and all these data centers. Gross margins are pretty strong, around about 50% of product up to 75% on services. That is not bad at all because the barrier to entry are high. Obviously, you can't exactly just spin up a synthetic aperture sonar business overnight. There's a lot of research development that has to happen. The business went from 12 million CAD revenue in 2020 to 91 million CAD in 2024. That's a 65% CAGR. This is objective, very strong CAGR for the company. It is. They finally turned around the company and became profitable by 22 and are now running about a 20% net margin. For what I can see, management is guiding about 100 million to 130 CAD by 2025. Sources differ, but general consensus seem to be 9-figure CAD. The plan going forward: Kraken is building a 60,000 square foot battery manufacturing facility in Nova Scotia that will triple their current production capability by late 25. The timing and location not far from Rhode Island facility is not coincidence. They're gearing up to supply what could become hundreds of millions of dollars in order from Anduril. So at the helm, Ken, CEO, former CEO because he died, spent decades in the marine technology before starting Kraken. He worked as Sea Corps, a Marine Research Center, so it's fair to say he has world-class alpha in understanding the various customer pain points and firsthand. This doesn't seem like some software guy pivoting into hardware. He knew sonar. He knew the defense procurement. He knew the defense procurement process. He knew offshore energy. Which watch this video, and it's clear he is technical, articulate, and doesn't deal with buzzwords or hype. Let's check this out. He can also explain really complex underwater acoustics in plain English, which makes me quite bullish on the foundation credibility. Also, the fact that he stuck with the company through years of loss and dilution shows conviction. He also has been smart about capital allocation rather than trying to do everything in-house. Kraken acquired a company called Penn Geo Subsea in 2020 to bolt on the service business. This acquisition has been accretive and gave them recurring revenue. He sadly passed away in February, but it's fair to say the lion's share of the company's formation was what he did. I won't pretend to know everything he says. I don't pretend to know. A new CEO, Greg, has been with the company since 2018 and has defense industry experience. They don't seem to be overpaying him themselves relative to the business size. The UNRWA solution. So looks like, so for those of you who have been living under the rock, obviously, there's a company called UNRWA. The TLDR is essentially that Palmer Luckey, very eccentric Hawaiian shirt-wearing VR genius who sold Oculus to Facebook for about $2 million at the age of 21, started a defense technology company that's now worth about $30 billion. 30 billion, I think, Canadian, private. They make autonomous weapon systems, sentry tower, interceptors, missiles, and increasing the underwater drone. Palmer Luckey's underwater drone army runs on Kraken components. When UNRWA decided to get into the maritime autonomy, they acquired a dive technology in 2022. Dive was already using Kraken sonar and batteries in their autonomous subs. Post the acquisition, UNRWA evaluated alternatives and decided that they might want to just stick with Kraken because their products are good, not because UNRWA, one of a very tech-driven, innovative company, are not lazy, but they looked up, probably did the research and found out there's no better alternative. So the product lineup for UNRWA is that UNRWA has this thing called Dive LD. This is an 18-foot autonomous submarine capable of 10-day mission at depth up to 6,000 meters. Each unit carries approximately 2 million CAD worth of Kraken sonar and batteries. Ghost Shark XL, extra large. This is a big boy, an underwater truck that carries around 10 million CAD of Kraken technology, probably batteries. UNRWA is also developing other underwater systems like Copperhead, a battery-powered torpedo drone, and a seabed sentry, an underwater monitoring system. While it's reasonable to assume that these could probably have the rest of Kraken's products, this hasn't been publicly confirmed. The manufacturing ramp, so with their in 2024, UNRWA opened their 100 square foot manufacturing facility in Rhode Island. This facility is designed to produce up to 200 dive LD vehicles per year and at a full capacity, plus Ghost Shark XL and other products. By 24, UNRWA opened. In 24, UNRWA opened on square foot, but is this the same thing? Yeah, it's the same thing twice. Let's do the math on just 50% utilization. So let's say they make 100 dive LD per year, 2 million per contract. That's 200 million CAD going to Andro, going to Kraken. Add even 20 Ghost Shark XL at about 10 million contract. That's another 2 million CAD to Kraken. That's about 4 million in potential annual revenue from Andro, which is about 4 times what with the revenue Kraken made in 24, which was $91 million. To be clear, these contracts are already signed. This isn't speculation. Australia awarded Andro about $1 billion USD contract for dozens of Ghost Shark XL platforms over 5 years, including co-funding a second manufacturing facility. The U.S. Navy selected Andro platform for their replicator program and has already taken delivery of a unit. Japan, South Korea, UK are all evaluating the deployment. The Australian contract alone implies a significant ongoing production. Even half these programs reach scale, Andro could be manufacturing hundreds of UUV annually 2027, 2028. So one of the reasons that we can believe that Kraken could be raised about customer concern risk. So why? Yeah, okay. A valid initial worry would be raised that Kraken could cut these contracts and go to another competitor or supplier. But this DD is saying that most likely no, that's not going to be possible. One reason is that there's a switching cost. Once you build out your technology using Kraken systems and software, it is hard, and in your contract that you've written out with the government is using their Kraken's product. It can be very difficult to rewrite those contracts and remove some of these, remove Kraken from the technology. So they are stuck with Kraken because the performance is legitimately superior, not out of convenience. Thirdly, the U.S. has hard at 2027 goal for UUV deployment. IMO, it could be wild to revalidate a new supplier this late, especially with no obvious superior supplier. If Andro collapses tomorrow, hunting in offshore energy, obviously Andro's not going anywhere. But if it does, these are all the different businesses that that Kraken can continue to make money. Huntington Ingalls, one of the largest U.S. shipbuilders, uses Kraken's components in their REMIS underwater vehicle through their Hydroid subsidiary. Offshore energy continues to be solid customer base for Kraken, especially in the oil and gas. Companies need a pipeline inspections, and these can be recurring revenue. So Kraken's Thunderfish and service business serves this market. The international navies are buying directly. Kraken has contracts with Canadian Navy, German Navy, and other mine countermeasure systems. Deep sea mining is an emerging opportunity. With critical minerals on the ocean floor and Trump signing an executive order to expedite offshore and mining permits, demand for seafloor mapping and understanding exploration becomes very critical. Kraken often gets cited as the future of Google Maps of the sea, which I don't know if that's possible. I choose not to dive deeply into this side of the thing, as there are currently no clear, tangible revenue routes in the pipeline for this. So I'm treating any quips of this line as a bit baseless, pumpy like event. But deep sea mining is 100% going to be a really good sector for them to be in. On other cases, this person says that their service business grew about 47% in 2024, and Greg has publicly stated that Kraken's expects to land another XL UUV under a water contract this year beyond Andro. So the Kraken moat. So Kraken basically really hard to compete with. The technology barrier are real, developing cutting edge synthetic aperture sonar and deep sea batteries takes years and years and has been 10 plus year head start on a lot of companies. Obviously, the US government defense companies, they provide some of the similar products, but those are, those contracts are obviously a lot more expensive. And when it comes to, when the government is looking at, who to hire for a specific contract, they're gonna look at, not always the cheapest, but who is the cheapest and has experience in the industry. More importantly, Kraken controls the entire stack: the sensor, the power, and the vehicle. Most competitors specialize in one piece or the other. The only other company offering the complete package is Lockheed Northrop Grumman. Kraken offers similar compatibilities at a fraction of the price of these large defense companies. Also, and I'm speculating here to be clear, for many future companies like Anduril that pride itself on moving fast and integrating quickly, working with nimble supplier that can adapt and customize, so on and so forth, beats dealing with bureaucracy and long lead times in traditional defense giants. That is so true. So the potential catalyst. So the NASDAQ uplist. The company traded on the Toronto Venture Exchange (OTC) in the U.S. A NASDAQ uplisting would unlock institutional buyers and dramatically increase liquidity. They need a sustainable price around $4 USD for 90 days, currently trading at $4.45 USD as of today, October 8th. Let's see if they have been able to keep this for 90 days. Has Kraken been able to keep the $4 range over 90 days? Question mark. Movement in the NASDAQ, unlocking institutional buyers, increase. So yeah, practically, keep being able to be listed on the NASDAQ, unlock institutional buyers, increase liquidity, and boost credibility for the company. Kraken needs to maintain the $4 price for 90 days, and let's see if Kraken has been able to keep that. So let's go out a year. Looks like they were $1 stock in February. They were about $2 stock in August, and looks like they hit that $4 range in October 6th. So they just got to this $4 range, and as long as they keep this up, things are only gonna get better. So what do we see here? Oh, this is terrible. That's better. NASDAQ listing. So boom, which is great site, potential catalyst. So Anduril production milestone. Any announcement about facility ramp up, delivery schedule, or new contracts will move the stock. We saw this in September 24 when Australia Ghost Shark contract drove shares about 17% in one day. The second XL UUV customer, management has telegraphed this is coming in 25. It could validate that multiple defense primers are standardizing on Kraken technology. Anduril IPO is going to open up a lot of eyes to a lot of the different partners that are Anduril is using for their production of their product, and I think then that means there's potential for Kraken to be discovered by new investors, institutional and retail. So why this won't 100x. I despise pumpers. I despise pumpers as much as the rest of you, so let's be sensible about this. To be clear, this is not a wild card lottery player where you will 100x your money. So he says, even though I thought about long and hard about roughly where we are. Kraken stock is up roughly 100% since the start of this year. So 1 year, well, this is 1 year. So December, so around January, it's about $1.80. Now it's $4. Definitely up a lot. Since the start of this year, the market has obviously figured out the Unreal connection. This isn't secret stock. The market is over $1 billion. But here's the thing, the actual revenue for Unreal manufacturing ramp hasn't even started the numbers yet. We are still in the anticipation phase. The Rhode Island facility just opened. The Australian contract just got signed. Production scales up is happening the 2025-2027. For what it's worth, I've been in multiple situations like this. I bought Rocket Lab at 10 after it had more than doubled a few months from $4. Obviously never feels great buying at the top. I'm still holding today, so on at $65. Same for AST at 18 after it had quietly tripled. Basically, I'm just trying to get in before, but it rose so much. What is it like that? My point being, if you are only looking for flat line graph, I can guarantee most of those will continue plateauing anywhere, or your wait, what did he say? My point being, if you are only looking for flat line graphs, I can guarantee most of those will continue plateauing anyway. You would incorrectly not want to put money into a stock to begin with. So TLDR, this stock has gone up. I think will go up a lot more than revenue materializes, catalyst hits. So the evolution isn't crazy. Kraken trades at the valuation isn't crazy. Kraken trades a trailing PE of about 85. Compare that to other mid-cap drone stocks. The AVA trades at the 152 PE. Kratos at 451 PE. IMO, the market is giving Kraken less credit despite arguably better growth perspective. Let's not forget that Kraken is growing at about 65% CAGR at a 20% net margin, and is ostensibly another XL UUV manufacturing contract. What could go wrong? To me, the biggest risk far is execution. Can they actually scale production fast enough, open up their facilities, and so the battery needs to come online smoothly? Any delays could hurt the company significantly. The second risk is the lumpy defense revenue. Government contracts can shift quarterly unexpectedly, creating volatility. If you're going to own this, I think you need to stomach the drawdowns, and because obviously those can be significant, and when they happen, especially given the stock has ran a fair bit this year, it could be very violent. My general recession is also a risk. So at this point, most of our position would be screwed. Besides just Kraken, if the broader market creates small cap Canadian tech will get hit hard regardless of the fundamentals. That said, defense spending tends to be relevant and important despite these cycles for the countries, especially underwater. Drone build out is driven by genuine national security. He says that I could be wrong about the annual revenue scale. Maybe they ramp slower than expected. Maybe gross margin compresses as they scale. maybe the contract gets cut. These are unavoidable for any company relying on fewer large contracts to fuel their growth. It is basically the buy-in to have the equal opposite at any time. Obviously, I think this is kind of important because, I mean, in a way, I think people looked at a company like Palantir the same way. I think they had mostly government contracts, they were lumpy, and they were making a lot, and they've been part of the government, have had government contracts even when they were private, and people wanted to see Palantir kind of start capturing the commercial market, which they were able to with time. I don't see that Kraken not being able to capture the private public markets as well, and as well as getting discovered more and more in the public markets from a stock perspective, from a company perspective. So this person's take, 2 to 3 years, if Unreal executes even close to plan, Kraken should be doing 3 to 500 revenue by 2027. At a 5% EBITDA, that's about 75 to 125 earning before interest, tax, depreciation, amortization. Apply at about 25 to 35 multiple, that would give you about $10-$20 CAD per share by 2027, depending on assumptions, obviously. The current price is around $445. That's about 2 to 5x upside over the next 2 to 3 years or so if things go right. Not life-changing money overnight, but IMO excellent risk reward for company with real technology, real contract, and clear path to scale. It's crazy to buy, but I maintain that this is a good thing. Kraken is not Robinhood, so you'll need a broker that handles it in the OTC market. I was able to buy it on Schwab. Interactive broker, Schwab, Fidelity, all support, I think. For the Brits, you can buy it trading 212 in ISA2. Liquidity is a bit terrible as the market opens, but it's not uh, liquid large cap either. I would not advise market order this thing. Use limit order. I actually like the fact that it isn't a large retail trade broker yet. An uplist featuring Robinhood would almost certainly boost the stock and open it up to more institutional investors and as well as retail investors. So, as you can see, overall, um, there's a lot of contracts that the company is going for, and I think there is really good potential that a lot of these features are gonna come true. I mean, what are the odds that you have a whole bunch of government contracts, you are building facilities that are literally close to one of your largest revenue drivers, and in a way it makes sense that for a company like Andro that needs to be nimble, quick on their feet, change to be able to change and produce these astonishing new technologies. They need partners, tech partners that are also in the same footing. And obviously, Kraken is gonna be nimble, change, and support whatever Andro needs are. So from that perspective, I think I can only see this relationship continue to be better. So it looks like he's saying a 2027 stock price of 10 to 20 CAD per share, um, which could be possible. And this is like if Unreal executes just close to what he planned about making that 400 million from the production of the 2 drones, UUVs that they are working on here, the Dive LD and the 20 Ghost Shark XLs, and as well as a whole bunch of unknown contracts they could sign with a lot of companies out there. And then this is the interview with the CEO that
St. John's.
I never really got into. Maybe I'll watch it just because it's the CEO. You can get his mind and the direction that he wanted to take the company. I'm going to make it on 1.5 so we can get through it quick.
At DefSec Atlantic, and I want to tell you, there's some great companies in the room here today, but there's one of these companies I think we got to get to know, and that's Kraken Robotics, doing some amazing things out of St. John's, or actually out of Mount Pearl, Newfoundland, over here in Dartmouth, and certainly globally around the world. But that company doesn't just exist based on the technology. That company exists based on strong leadership and a guy with a vision for the future to make this country a better place. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Carl Kenny. So Carl, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Wow, thanks.
You only use two strongs, though, Cal.
Only use strong, very strong. Yeah. So yeah, thanks, Al. It's great to be here and on your podcast. You've been very kind. So yeah, it's been almost 40 years on this journey, and someone said to me the other day, it seemed to be an overnight success. I said, yeah, kind of like Willie Nelson, doing 40 years of blue eyes crying in the rain. But it's been a great journey so far, and met a lot of people, a lot of great people, worked with a lot of great people, and the future looks really bright indeed. As you said, I'm from Newfoundland. I'm originally from the southern shore, small fishing village called Fermuse. My family has a long historical connection to the sea, going back to the 1700s. I spent my time as a young boy in a fishing boat, lobster fishing and cod fishing with the family, and then as a young fella, left Newfoundland, joined the Navy, and I spent 5 years in the Canadian Navy as a Mars officer then, and on the West Coast, Kootenay. Spent some time here in Halifax on naval ops and stuff, but a great time in the Navy. But at that time, in the early 80s, there was a thing called the PC industry. There was the personal computer industry, which was just starting to emerge, and big opportunities south of the border. So I ended up, after I got out of the Navy, moving to Seattle, and after getting my bearings down there and all my immigration stuff squared away, and I ended up working for a small company at the time called Microsoft, and we know where that story went. So I was fortunate enough to be on that ride for a while, and that was the early days of PC and the PC industry, and met a lot of people. But because of the background in Microsoft, I was really taken by software and the power of software and what software could do, and how it can change the world. And we've seen, certainly in the last 30 years or more, the power that has in every industry, from medical to travel to banking to our defense sector, the power of software. And it continues to evolve. Here we are now in 2021, and every day you pick up the newspaper and we're talking about machine learning and artificial intelligence, which fundamentally, for the most part, are driven by software and software algorithms. So we're going to see this trend continue, and I have great hopes for the future. Kraken is now coming up on 10 years old. We started off doing synthetic aperture sonar, which is extremely high resolution, high fidelity sonar. Only a handful of companies in the world have this, and they're all typically big tier 1 defense contractors. And then there's little Kraken. And many people say, particularly after we just won some contracts like in Denmark and Poland, and some pursuits here in Canada and the States, what makes a difference. And I really bring it back to the software side of things. We really took a software-defined approach to actually take the hardware cost out of that. So while some of our competitors are spending tens of thousands of dollars to process the signal on their hardware, we're running it on an $800 video game card, advanced video game card, which really changes the bill of material costs and allows the technology to be more accessible to others. So even though it came out of the military side, and tip of the hat to the military and defense sector, we see huge opportunities in the commercial side. Typically in things of what I call seabed surveillance. Right. We have billions and billions of dollars of critical seabed infrastructure sitting on the floor today. I mean, many of your viewers wouldn't be able to watch this podcast without fiber optic cables strung across the ocean floor. Yeah. So it's this critical subsea infrastructure that needs to be inspected and maintained, and we're really proud to be building the tools and technologies, the sensors, the sonars, the lasers, the robots that allow both our defense sector to protect us, and the commercial side to be able to keep us warm and keep us educated and keep us entertained and keep us safe as well. So it's a bright opportunity moving forward for us.
100%, Carl. I mean, and you're around the show here today, you can feel the excitement in the room. The market is the marine sector is kind of exploding right now. People are on the cusp of wanting to do business. Kraken front and center of that. Tell us a little bit about some opportunities in the Arctic. I know that's near and dear to your heart.
Arctic is huge. I mean, bless our fellows and colleagues in the space sector.
Right.
We're reading a lot of stuff lately about Amazon and Elon Musk, and that's great.
Yeah.
I love that. But being a maritimer and being a marine technology guy, my preference is kind of to the ocean, going back to so many years. And with all due respect, I haven't had any food from outer space, and I haven't had any water from outer space. And there's been lots of very interesting discoveries going on in space, but Bob Ballard had a wonderful saying. He's the guy who discovered founded Titanic. He said, with the same budget that NASA has for space exploration, we could do 1,000 years of ocean exploration.
Right.
And what drives me and drives the Kraken team is just the opportunity of discovery.
Right.
That's what's so exciting. There's so many things out there that we don't know. Like maybe there's a cure for cancer, or some substance or a creature that can help us, improve our lot in life. New sources of food, new sources of energy as we move forward into the green environment. So this is not the same old ocean industry that's been around for hundreds of years. It's a brave new frontier, and it's the inner frontier opportunity that's really exciting me.
And it's a harsh environment to do work in.
Well, you mentioned the Arctic, right? The Arctic is opening up. We're going to see more and more ships up there. And attendant to that are things like safety, security. It's sovereign land for Canada. And this word, some people may take offense to it, but there's also exploitation of our resource.
Right.
Exploration and exploitation of that resource for the common good. It's ours. So we need to protect it. We need to nurture it. We need to be sensitive to the environment. We need to be sensitive to the peoples up there, and do things better than we ever had in the past. Because, people like us, we're getting along. And you can tell by the color of our hair, but there's huge opportunities for the young folks that come behind us, and we want to make sure that the path we lay is a strong path for them to walk on.
Now, Jerry, I know you're chomping at the bit. You wanted on this conversation for a year.
I did. Well, I've been in business development, Carl, for 30 years, and I hear your name. I've been in retail business development. It's exciting to listen to you talk, because you've had success in the past. To see you constantly striving and moving forward is what I find inspiring. You may not know that, but you've inspired a lot of people that I know in business development. But what keeps you going? You've had success. Why don't you just kick your feet up and sip a Mai Tai somewhere down in the Caribbean? Why are you doing this?
Thanks, Jerry. Again, you're very kind. I mean, people talk about success, but it's you can't talk about success without talking about failure.
Yeah.
So I've had some of those along the way as well. It hasn't been peaches and cream all the way forward. But to your question, seriously, what's driving you is the ability to get up. And we've heard greater men and women than me come up with much more elaborate and eloquent sayings along that line. But it is the ability to get up and keep striving forward. Perseverance, believe in what you're doing. When you hit the wall sometimes and you get bounced, Babe Ruth said, every time I strike out, I'm closer to a home run. Yeah. That's what's been, the driving fact. Yeah, I've made a lot of money over the years. I've lost a lot of money over the years. It's been an interesting cycle, but it's been that continuum. How can you understand or appreciate success if you haven't had a few bumps along the way? And that's a message I leave with a lot of the young people as well, is that don't be discouraged when you encounter those kind of setbacks. If you believe in yourself and you believe in what you're doing, there's going to be opportunities to be able to pick yourself up and move forward. And that's a lesson that I've learned along in my career. I speak to young engineers and business students and high school kids, and I talk about Grand Prix racing, F1 racing. The winning race car goes across the finish line not with a full tank of gas. Right. It goes across on fumes, but it's a champion. That's how they win world championships. Now, not to say that
great analogy.
Yeah. And people don't think about it that way, but when the penny drops, you get it. Because if you've got a full tank of gas, you're too heavy and you're too slow and you're lethargic and you're not going to become a champion. And that doesn't mean run out of gas. It happens along the way, but sometimes you really got to push the edge to do great things. It's easy to do good stuff. It's that extra edge to make you a champion and do great stuff.
Well, as you're speaking, I think about, and I've watched you over at your booth. You're the president and CEO of Kraken. You're at your booth. Why?
Lead by example, right? That's what my grandfather said. It's like you're talking before about falling down. When you're in a boat at 5 or 6 years old in a dory in the North Atlantic, you fall down a lot. So the idea is don't fall overboard. So you got to lead by example, and that's what I've tried to do over my career, is get out in front, show that taking risks is sometimes necessary. Really, I thought a lot about this, and you try to distill the message down into simple words. And for me, when I think about it, it's basically 3 words that I leave with people. Is basically you invent, you innovate, and you inspire. And that's been a mantra that I've been preaching my entire career.
Well, kudos to you for being here and being at your booth and doing that, because it's not every CEO I've worked for would do that. Oh, yeah.
It's good, and again, a shout out to the team, the Kraken team. Wouldn't be able to do this without this great team, and we've made some really interesting acquisitions lately.
Yes, I see Moya over at the booth. You got Moya Cow working the booth.
Yeah, 100%. Great team there with Pangeo. Made a couple of international acquisitions. We're I think tracking up to close to 250 people now. Very, very talented men and women. Very, very skilled. I've got still some time left in me. Knock on wood. But the team that's around me and supporting me, I'm privileged to lead, and have a succession to that team moving forward. So there's still lots of stuff in our pipe. There's still lots of pursuits going on here in Canada and North America and internationally. As I said earlier, big opportunities in defense as we start putting machines and doing the dull, the dirty, and dangerous stuff that robots can do versus putting young sailors in harm's way. On the commercial sector, we see huge opportunities in offshore wind, subsea infrastructure I mentioned earlier, cabling, pipelines, new discoveries, heck, even treasure hunting. What's down there? I mean, we have equipment now that's able to go 6,000 meters deep. What's at the bottom of the ocean?
Carl, you sound like a teenager.
I know. I feel like I feel like a teenager, and that's
You
what
look
keeps,
like a teenager.
That's what. Oh, come on. That's what keeps you driving forward. What keeps you excited, and you get up in the morning. You have to get up with that sense of energy and vitality, and you get that out to the team. You get that out to the customers. You get that out to your investors. I mean, this is not the Carl Kenny story.
No.
This is the Kraken story, and I've always said, the Kraken story is not about the boat. It's about the sailors, and I learned that as a young Navy officer. I think I was the youngest guy in my division when I was leading, COM and EW, and learning, the respect and discipline that you need to do to lead people. So it really is about that. Treat people well.
Yeah.
There's enough misery in the world, Jerry. Why contribute to it?
Well, I actually worked from your office 2 weeks ago because I didn't have anywhere else to work. I really appreciate it. You can send me an invoice on that rental.
Yeah, no worries.
But I got to meet a lot of your team, and I can see that, like Dave Shea and all those people.
Yeah.
Very intelligent.
Well, they care, right?
Yeah, you can tell.
That's the thing that we're just finishing a very somber search operation in Labrador, and our team went above and beyond on that, and they stayed there as long as they could because they care, right? And that's, if there's something you try to instill and drill into people is be mindful, be respectful, and really give a heck about what you're doing, because otherwise it's meaningless. And unless you're making a contribution, then you go do something else. And I think for the ocean technology sector and the ocean sector and everything that encompasses that, science, defense, and all the various pillars in the domain, are huge and exciting opportunities for young men and women, not only internationally but here in Atlantic Canada. And we're seeing our schools, our educational systems, the various universities, the colleges stepping up to that opportunity, putting new programs and training systems into place, educational systems. And we take these young people and export them around the world. Canada has primarily been a resource nation. We've lived off our resources. We've never really truly cultivated and put forward our brain resources. And so instead of being brawn and that kind of thing, it's now time to exploit the brain power, and take that to the world and bring the revenue home, right?
We thought we were going to talk about synthetic apertures, but it's morphed into a much bigger, a very inspiring conversation for me.
100%, Jerry. It's Carl, a wonderful, wonderful conversation. And normally I have a lot of questions to ask, and I just wanted to let you expand on it. You eloquently laid out a wonderful vision, really quite impressive. I have an honest question for you. It might be a hard one for you, and it might be an easy one. I don't.
If it's a hard one, I'm not going to answer.
I don't know which, but Carl, young fella from Hughes, you've accomplished so much, and there's so much left to do, and I can feel that you're ready to make this big difference. Who inspired you at such an early age to make such an impact?
Well, I come from good stock. I can tell you that, and I look back at my family. They've been there since the get-go, through thick and thin, ups and downs. But it's in the pedigree. It's in the DNA. My great goes back to the 1700s, and it was interesting. My daughter, who was just turned 19, she's doing a social studies project at school, and it was about her grandparents. And I said, well, we know our grandparents very well. My dad's passed, my mom's still alive and kicking. So I took her down to where my great back to the 1700s was buried, and there's a little plot in the ground, and I said, there's where you're from.
Yeah.
Right? That's in your DNA. So it's, this long historical connection to the sea. But along the way, numbers of mentors. I've worked with and for, well, I've only worked for one person, really. That's the Queen. Even though I did some time with Microsoft and some of the other people and characters in the personal computer industry. I never considered working for them. I was always with them.
Right.
But as a Navy officer, of course, I worked with the Admiral and the Queen.
Yeah.
But I've had a lot of great mentors, read a lot, great leadership. There's too many to mention. I mean, if I start down thanking, we're going to be here for the next hour. Yeah. But it's been everything. It's been embracing the good, learning about the bad, and trying to ignore that. Embracing positive energy and not getting dragged down by negative energy, and as I said earlier, try to make meaningful and positive impacts. And certainly in this industry, there's going to be tons of opportunities to do that. I mean, with what I see coming with the evolution of sensors, the evolution of robotics, artificial intelligence, machine learning. I mean, there's so much to learn and to contribute. So, and then pick your sector, whether it's energy or defense. Offshore exploration, discovery. Just remain curious. And that's really what's going to drive you. Stay curious.
Carl, 27 years ago, I got Jeff Sterling to come speak to Memorial University, and I put it up on YouTube. I recorded it myself. It's motivated me and many of my business colleagues for 30 years. I've subsequently added you to the list. It's taken 20 years for this to happen. I'm absolutely ecstatic that I've gotten to meet you and that you've shared a lot with us here today. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you.
Well, there we were. We weren't making waves there. We got into a
That is a cool little interview of the former CEO and founder. Unfortunately, sadly, he's passed away, but he was very inspirational speaker, to be honest. So good luck to his daughter. Hope she succeeds in everything that she does. We're gonna take a look at this video here. This is the KATFISH system that Kraken uses that takes images of the seabed. something I noticed in this video is that the boat actually keeps moving. I expected that the boat would just stop. And something else I noticed is that the boat does not have any propellers to drive engage the depth. And I thought the drone, the KATFISH, would have its own propeller and be able to kind of drive to the depth it needs to, but and be recovered. But however, it seems like there's this long string that is attached to it. Maybe that's an innovation point that hopefully they are working on. One point is putting propeller on that on the KATFISH, so it propels itself under the water without the boat, and also to be able to return back to the boat for pickup on its own. I think those two innovation points are probably something they're working with. They can always use some kind of magnet to be able to link to it when it comes up to like maybe 50 to 20 feet below the water, and connect to it and pull it up the rest of the way with the rope. But I think I would want to see some kind of innovation in that point. But besides that, it was a good video to watch. I want to quickly just go over the company's revenue. Kraken Robotics. Yeah, those numbers looked weird. Kraken Robotics. All right, this looks much better here. They may not have the best reporting yet here, but it looks like they're saying buy. You have analysts say 5 analysts saying buy, 1 analyst saying hold. Overall average is obviously a buy. Revenue, as you can see, the dark blue is the forecasted revenue, and they have Q2 of 24. Looks like they beat revenue estimates here. They did not beat in Q3 24, and they beat it in Q4 of 24. Q1 of 2025, they definitely did not beat it. They were off by about 26%, and they definitely beat it by 6% in Q2. Q3 revenues are coming up fairly soon. Now they'll be announced November 21st, 2025, so 38 days from now. They're forecasted to revenue forecast of about $34 million. I think they're going to definitely beat these numbers due to all the contracts and the partnerships that they have. Earnings per share. So EPS looks like they come in line most of the time. Here they definitely kicked EPS in the booty. They were able to beat it by 500%. Forecasted Q1 of 2025, they definitely did not beat it. Q2 once again did not beat it. They were expected to do an estimate of about 0.0 less than about half a penny an EPS. Now they're forecasted to do about 1 penny going into Q3, which is going to be 38 days from now, November 21st. I think the comparison list might not be good, so I'm not going to look at that. But total revenue about 26 million. Consensus revenue forecast, they're due was 24. This is so the last earnings. Revenue surprise about 6% here in Q2 of 2025. So they beat it last time. Maybe they're going to beat it again. So that is all. I think I kind of just went through everything around Kraken. This